Hello and welcome to everybody. This is going to be a fast-paced presentation, Unleash Your Sales Team Potential. Now I'm going to share my screen. I've got some visual images for you, but essentially it is about the content, and I really want you to unlock the power of data-driven sales and revolutionize your sales teams. Now, make sure that if you've got any questions, put it in the chat. If we don't get time to pick them all up at the end, then we'll certainly be going through to ensure that we contact you and answer all of your question about this valuable content. So let me share my screen. Excellent. Right. Okay. That's up and ready to go. So again, thank you so much for being here. It's 4:01, just waiting for a few more people to join me, but I will just do the warm act at the moment and by way of an introduction. And what gets measured gets done. So it's really important to understand what you're measuring. As we know, garbage in, garbage out. So sales leaders, CEO, CRO, today we're going to explore the transformative power of data-driven sales. Now, we're going to talk about what gets measured gets done, and exactly what to measure and how to measure it, and what are the outcomes of this as well. Now, if some of you that joined me last week, because this is a series of 3 live presentations, so some of you that joined me last week will know that I talked very much about talent acquisition, sales hiring, and how you can use data and the assessments in order to reduce, if not negate, all of the bias in sales, but also find the cream of the crop as well. So make sure you go back and listen to that. But today we're talking about unleashing your sales team's potential. As an example, after training salespeople, we saw improvements in the sales quartile of 30%. Now, this is the difference between less than 70% quota attainment to over 90% quota attainment. Now, I'm going to talk a bit more about that later. So please feel free, as I say, to ask questions. There will be a recording of this on YouTube, and tomorrow I will be posting an article with all of this content. So the power of sales research. Our research provides granular insights into individual sellers, managers, and leaders. So meeting them really where they are. We help you to determine what works best for each individual, and in the context of the sales excellence and what that could really mean to you. So this information allows you to really play to what we naturally know is our strengths. The only way we can do that is really identifying what they are, doing that assessment, but also to improve their competencies, the competencies of the sellers and the managers and the leaders by understanding their strengths and where those gaps are. It's about the known. And, for the first time ever, we've got so much data in sales. But the point is, it's using the data most effectively where it's going to make the biggest impact on your bottom line. And this is what I'm talking about today, really unleashing those opportunities. And tracking the right sales activities. Now, our data is based on over 2.3 sales evaluations. And it shows that the top 10% of salespeople excel in listening over talking. Now, this skill is crucial to effective sales. Now, we know that, but salespeople are quite good talkers. Now, our research demonstrates that 375% larger difference in this insight. So, if you're able to identify the top 10% of salespeople that are excellent at listening over talking, then you're seeing like a 375% difference. Now, that is massive. That's massive. And that's the impact of really identifying who is your A team. And I don't really like that word, A player, A team, but that's really, we're trying to find top salespeople, the cream of the crop. So if what we need to do is looking at our existing sales team and being able to identify, what exactly where the gaps are and what tailored training and coaching will actually close those gaps in those top salespeople, or the B player salespeople, bring them up to their A level game. And that's really often little nuances that make a massive difference in the performance of people. But it's really understanding those. It's like finding an eye in the needle, but that's exactly what you need to do. So it's about how do we go about doing that. Now, the amount of time that I've heard sales leaders complain that their training that they conducted last year has had marginal or minimum effect on the individual sellers. Now, I can see exactly why that is, because one size does not fit all. One size training does not fit the entire sales team, because you haven't identified where the individual gaps are in the sellers. So one bulk training is not going to do it for everybody. The point is individual and sales specific assessments identify those gaps in the individuals, and then you train and you coach to close those gaps, enabling for more targeted training by having that data. Now, this approach ensures that training has a more meaningful impact on the individual sellers, and the results of this targeted coaching and training achieves your goals. So the impact of proper training is huge. Now, our analysis shows, from some analysis that we did was of 5,331 salespeople, it revealed that the improvements were remarkable in post-training from tactical competencies. So, for instance, 55% were better at closing deals. 28% were better at consultative selling. Now, so it's really about proper, targeted, and executing training to be a catalyst for that change. Now, if you apply a data-driven approach to assessing your existing team, then training will dramatically impact the results. It impacts the seller's sales DNA, and I'll talk more about that, by making them more responsive to sales. We all want to improve. We all want to be better at what we do because it makes our life easier. So it's about the way you present sales assessments, really. If this allows people to see where their own gaps are and allows them to fill the gaps so that they can improve, everyone wants to see the results. So my question to you is, do you know what your Achilles heel is? If you cannot prove it, how can you take your sales team on a journey to excellence? How do they know that they're improving if you don't have that baseline of results and identify those particular gaps that are unique to individuals? We all want to be treated like individuals, so why aren't we doing that in sales? So it really benefits the individual and the team as well. It benefits in terms of shorter sales cycle, higher gross margins, more accurate pipeline forecasts results from closing these competencies in the gaps and improving skills. It helps you to really uncover the skills gaps that matter, because we can measure from all of the data that we've got what great looks like for your industry in your market. And all we do is we add in your cultural nuances internally, and then we're able to crunch that data with the sales assessment. Now, one discovery that we had from our research was that the biggest differentiator in sales performance is not sales related. What do you think it is? It's about self-limiting beliefs. It's not polite to talk about money. This is a self-limiting belief. You know, I need my prospects to like me. This is a self-limiting belief. And it really significantly impacts results. But the problem is we may be training for sales skills, but we're actually not identifying these self-limiting beliefs that have a significant impact on results. So you must identify the gaps in mindsets and beliefs, not just the skills and sales competencies. And then you can coach for some of these nuances, these intangibles, and train for other identified gaps. And it helps you to bridge those gaps in your sales skills and competencies, because you no longer have those self-limiting beliefs. But the individual understands the link between the self-limiting beliefs and their results. Once they see it and they understand it, they want to close that gap themselves. I mean, why would they want to be undermining themselves? They don't. Knowledge is power, and it's about providing your sales team, your individual sellers, with that knowledge. Now, we need to take the blinkers off and use the data that's available within your team by doing the assessments. Now, the impact on belief, the improvements to your team is absolutely massive. Now, for example, if you have this is more of the tactical skills, if you have a great discomfort to discussing money. Now, some of us have that because we've been brought up in our families where there's been a lack and we then feel uncomfortable. This has got nothing to do with your professional environment, but it is you as an individual. So if you're uncomfortable discussing money, you're going to be uncomfortable with talking to your sellers about selling value. So if you fix those discomforts to discussing money, the seller understands why they have a discomfort because of things in their background, then they're naturally going to start to close that gap because it's having an impact on their bottom line. It will improve the buy cycle for you as the sales leader, CEO, CRO, and it helps the sellers to navigate price sensitivity. You know, those that have a need for approval, which is what we measure, and once you start to close that gap, it will enhance the consultative selling. And you can see the link when I talk about those things. If you need for approval, then you're not going to do consultative selling because you don't want to be seen to be the bad guy. So these little nuances have a massive impact on the bottom line and the ability to close deals. But you've got to start to assess and analyze those. So we really do know what the baseline looks like because we've got this abundance of data in which to measure it. So knowing which areas to improve, which are stagnant, which areas are declining is essential in closing the gap and effective for sustainable growth. You've got to work on the root causes, not the symptoms. You know, a one-size-fits-all training works on the symptoms. If you identify the root causes, what's feeding the behavior, and understand that in the individuals, because it's going to be different, then you can start to close those gaps. So maximizing performance through the data-driven evaluations is about analyzing the people, the processes, and the customer growth strategies, because people and processes create those customer growth strategies, that triangle. One depends on another to really create that stability. Now you can bridge the potential growth opportunities by looking at the people and understanding what processes are not working for them. This is a processor, but it's the external ones as well. You know, how do they interact with the CRM system? You know, do you have a formalized sales process? Is everyone using the same one? What are the differences? All of these things we're measuring for. Now we know that some sales competencies are hard to improve. Now, in last week's presentation, I talked about this and I've written an article about it. And it's about the desire, outlook, commitment. These are more difficult sales competencies to improve through training, not through coaching. But you need to identify what they are. What we give you once we've done that assessment, we give the individual, the manager of the individual, a list of the coaching notes that's going to help you to help the individual. I mean, so often sales managers do not know not only how to coach, but they don't know what to coach. They don't know what's going to have the biggest impact. Well, this assessment gives you all of that information so that you can really make the difference for the individual, for the team, for the company, for the bottom line, for the customer. Now, these qualities are often intrinsic, so you need to be able to measure for it. Now, we know that we call this under the banner of will to sell. Now, once you look at desire, outcome, commitment, which are essential when you're recruiting, but in your existing team as well, you know, it improves by 0 to 6%. And that has a massive, because it's almost like the foundation to everything else. So it's really extremely important. Okay, so, oops, I've jumped 2 slides here. Sorry, I don't know what I'm doing. So, you know, the power of data-driven transformation. Now, in fact, let me just turn this off a little bit so you can kind of focus a bit more on me and what I'm saying, because this is really important about the power of data-driven transformation. Now, it's stated that, as I stated above, we in a particular analysis, we analysed 5,331 salespeople, and we looked at the 21 sales competencies and their scores. And at the end of the training, measuring what the score was before and after, because as a partner to this sales analysis, the database, it was really important to understand what the difference of this targeted training was going to have. So we measured before and we measured afterwards. And I just wanted to share some of those results with you. So this could be happening in your organizations as well. So the first question was, is this training having an impact on the job performance? Last week's presentation, I talked a lot about there's no point just understanding what strengths people have, but you want to know whether it has an impact on the job performance, right? So did it have an impact on job performance? Yes, it did. But okay, well then to what extent? Well, the medium sales percentile score of the salespeople from the second assessment afterwards enhanced by over 30% over the initial assessment. Now, the core competencies are divided in our assessment into 3. Will to sell, which measures the individual sales specific drive to succeed. The sales DNA, which measures the core underlying beliefs and actions that support or limit, I've talked about self-limiting beliefs, sales success. And then the tactical competencies that measures the sales ability necessary throughout the sales life cycle. Okay, so they're the 3 kind of core competencies. So we were measuring what was the impact that had. Now, this analysis showed significant improvement in 5 of the 10 tactical competencies. Remember, tactical was the ability necessary throughout the sales life cycle. And then after training, salespeople were 20% better at qualifying, 24% better at selling value, 28% better at consultative selling, 43% better at reaching decision makers, 55% better at closing, right? Before and after this targeted sales based upon the assessment that was done before. Now, this translates roughly to the difference, as I mentioned at the top, between salespeople achieving less than 70% of quota or over 70% of quota, which is huge. Now, as sales leaders, what you want to know is really what will improve your team. What are the things that are going to make the difference, and what those improvements will mean to you, your team, your bottom line. Well, it means a shorter sales cycle because your team's getting to decision makers and understanding why they need to buy, particularly from you. Higher gross margins because your salespeople become more skilled at getting customers to accept the price. More accurate pipeline forecasts because opportunities are better qualified. Fewer stalled closing because your salespeople have correctly moved through all of the preceding steps in the sales process. This is huge. And it's just maybe going back to one or two things for each of the individuals that's going to have the biggest impact that you're able to measure. And it may be, for examples of things that I've given you before, like self-limiting beliefs or their attitude to discussing money. But you need to know these things in order to close the gap. Now, I want this analysis to give sales leaders, CEOs, CROs, revenue generators more conviction in the investment in targeted training and coaching their sales teams. When done correctly, sales-specific analysis fuels targeted training and individual-specific targeted coaching by managers, sellers will dramatically be a catalyst for change for the sellers and transform your sales operation to produce the required results. Now, I don't know if I've got any questions, because I did warn you, it would be a bit of a whirlwind of information that I'm throwing at you, but it's really that I wanted to kind of go through and outline what this is all about, what is going to make the difference to your sales team, and how we go about doing that for you. So remember, I'm going to be picking up on all of the questions, so send them direct to me if you don't want to post them here. Please feel free to contact me. But now I just want to give you a heads up for next week as well. This is the last in the third live session that I'm doing. So that's next week, the 19th, same time. So make sure you sign up for that. We will be posting an article tomorrow, on what I've discussed today, but also the recording from this presentation. And in it will be the link, and it will be on my feed as well. So make sure that you sign up for this next week. We're going to be talking about unlocking the secrets to sales leadership excellence. Now, I told you last week, I must be the only person in the room that's dealt with neon psychotic sales managers and some leaders over the years. Now, I've been in the sales environment for over 30 years. So this is going back some. The problem is I still hear about some of these things today. So, we have sales great sellers that are made into managers and leaders, and it's not doing them a great service because they don't have the skill sets, and we all want to do well. So I'm going to give you an insight as to how that can happen. But today I'd like you to thank you for joining me for this presentation on unlocking the power of data-driven sales to revolutionize your sales team. I hope I've given you an insight as to how that happens. Now, my goal is to transform your sales team through data-driven strategies. That's my focus, data-driven. Let's prove it, okay? Contact me to discuss unleashing your sales team's potential using data-driven approved strategies to approach to revenue growth. So thank you so much for joining me. I hope you've enjoyed the insights that I've shared here. Make sure you send me your comments and questions, and I'll make sure I'll answer them. All right. Just checking if we've got any more questions. Just 25 minutes. It has been a whirlwind. Excellent. Oh, I think I have got. Brilliant. My assistant's been posting the link to the session for next week, Unlocking Sales Excellence. So you've got that in the chat as well. And yes, please schedule a consultation. Thank you for that, Jacques. Jacques, my assistant. Yeah, if you want to schedule a consultation and so we can talk about how this is going to affect your team, make sure that you do contact me. But we'll send that all tomorrow as well. So thank you so much. See you next week on the 19th. Take care.